Hi everyone, it's Michelle. Welcome to my channel where we're reading the Bible through in a year. We do these things unfiltered, unedited, and unrehearsed, so you'll have to bear with me as I stumble over words and names and so on and so forth. We are in the book of Daniel and the book of 2 Peter, still in Psalms 119 because it is a really big chapter. We've got at least 3 or 4 more days in that. So as we read chunks of it at a time. And Proverbs 28 for a few more days as well. We are reading New American Standard Bible, and we're just going to get into it. Thanks for joining me, by the way. I appreciate it. All right, here we go. We're going to be reading Daniel chapter 5 in its entirety. Belshazzar the king held a great feast for the 1,000 of his nobles, and was drinking wine in the presence of the 1,000. While he tasted the wine, Belshazzar gave orders to bring the gold and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple, in case we're on the next generation, which was in Jerusalem, so that the king and his nobles, his wives, and his concubines could drink out of them. Then they brought the gold vessels that had been taken out of the temple, the house of God, which was in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles, his wives, and his concubines drank out of them. They drank the wine and praised the gods of gold and silver and of bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Suddenly, the fingers of a human hand emerged and began writing opposite the lampstand on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the back of the hand that did the writing. Okay, that would be freaky. Then the king's face became pale, no doubt, and his thoughts alarmed him, and his hip joints loosened, and his knees began knocking together. The king called aloud to bring the sorcerers, the Chaldeans, and the diviners. And the king began speaking and said to the wise men of Babylon, "Anyone who can read this inscription and explain its interpretation to me shall be clothed with purple and have a necklace of gold around his neck and have authority as third ruler in the kingdom." Then all the king's wise men came in, but they could not read the inscription or make known its interpretation to the king. Then King Belshazzar was greatly alarmed, and his face grew even more pale, and his nobles were perplexed. The queen entered the banquet hall because of the words of the king and his nobles. The queen began to speak and said, "O king, live forever. Do not let your thoughts alarm you or your face be pale. There is a man in your kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy gods, and in the days of your father illumination, insight, and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father the king, appointed him chief of the soothsayer priests, sorcerers, Chaldeans, and diviners. This was because of an extraordinary spirit, knowledge, insight, interpretation of dreams, explanation of riddles, and solving of difficult problems were found in this Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Let Daniel now be summoned, and he will declare the interpretation." Then Daniel was brought in before the king, and the king began speaking and said to Daniel, "Are you that Daniel who is one of the exiles from Judah, whom my father the king brought from Judah? Now I have heard about you, that a spirit of the gods is in you, and that illumination, insight, and extraordinary wisdom has been found in you. Just now the wise men and the sorcerers were brought in before me to read this inscription and make its interpretation known to me, but they could not declare the interpretation of the message. But I personally have heard about you, that you are able to give interpretations and solve difficult problems. Now if you are able to read the inscription and make its interpretation known to me, you will be clothed with purple and wear a necklace of gold around your neck, and you will have authority as the third ruler in the kingdom." Then Daniel replied and said before the king, "Keep your gifts for yourself, or give your rewards to someone else. However, I will read the inscription to the king and make the interpretation known to him. O king, the Most High God granted sovereignty, greatness, honor, and majesty to Nebuchadnezzar your father. Now because of the greatness which he granted him, all the peoples, nations, and populations of all languages trembled and feared in his presence. Whomever he wished he killed, and whomever he wished he spared alive. and whoever he wished he elevated, and whomever he wished he humbled. But when his heart was arrogant and his spirit became so overbearing that he behaved presumptuously, he was deposed from his royal throne, and his dignity was taken away from him. He was also driven away from mankind, and his heart was made like that of animals, and his dwelling place was with the wild donkeys. He was given grass to eat like cattle, and his body was drenched with the dew of heaven, until he recognized that the Most High God is ruler over the realm of mankind, and that he sets it over whomever he wishes. Yet you, his son Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, even though you knew all this. But you have risen up against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before you, and you and your nobles, your wives, and your concubines have been drinking wine out of them. And you have praised the gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which do not see, nor hear, nor understand. But the God in whose hand are your life breath and all your ways you have not glorified. Then the hand was sent from him, and this inscription was written out. Now this is the inscription that was written: Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. This is the interpretation of the message. Mene, God has numbered your kingdom and put an end to it. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found deficient. Perez, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar gave orders, and they clothed Daniel with purple and put a necklace of gold around his neck, and issued a proclamation concerning him that he now had authority as third ruler in the kingdom. That same night, Belshazzar the Chaldean king was killed, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom at about the age of 62. All right, 2 Peter, chapter 2. I'll read the whole thing. But false prophets also appeared among the people, just as there will also be false teachers among you, who will secretly introduce destructive heresies, even denying the master who bought them, bringing the swift destruction upon themselves. Many will follow their indecent behavior, and because of them, the way of the truth will be maligned, and in their greed they will exploit you with false words. Their judgment from long ago is not idle, and their destruction is not asleep. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to pits of darkness, held for judgment, and did not spare the ancient world, but protected Noah, a preacher of righteousness, with 7 others, when he brought a flood upon the whole world of the ungodly, and if he condemned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to destruction by reducing them to ashes, having made them an example of what is coming for the ungodly, and if he rescued righteous Lot, who was oppressed by the perverted conduct of unscrupulous people, for by what he saw and heard, that righteous man, while living among them, felt his righteous soul tormented day after day by their lawless deeds. Then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from a trial, and to keep the unrighteous under punishment for the day of judgment, and especially those who indulge the flesh in its corrupt passion and despise authority. Reckless, self-centered, they speak abusively of angelic majesties without trembling, whereas angels who are greater in might and power do not bring a demeaning judgment against them before the Lord. But these, like unreasoning animals, born as creatures of instinct to be captured and killed, using abusive speech where they have no knowledge, will, in the destruction of these creatures, also be destroyed, suffering wrong as the wages of doing wrong. They count it a pleasure to revel in the daytime. They are stains and blemishes, reveling in their deceptions as they feast with you, having eyes full of adultery that never cease from sin, enticing unstable souls, having hearts trained in greed, accursed children, abandoning the right way, they have gone astray, having followed the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved the reward of unrighteousness. But he received a rebuke for his own offense, for a mute donkey speaking with a human voice restrained the insanity of the prophet. These are springs without water and mists driven by a storm, for whom the black darkness has been reserved. For while speaking out arrogant words of no value, they entice by fleshly desires, by indecent behavior, those who barely escape from the ones who live in error, promising them freedom while they themselves are slaves of corruption. For by what anyone is overcome, By this he is enslaved. For if after they have escaped the defilements of the world by knowledge of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, they are again entangled in them and are overcome, the last state has become worse for them than the first. For it would be better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than, having known it, to turn away from the holy commandment handed on to them. It has happened to them according to the true proverb, a dog returns to its own vomit, and a sow after washing returns to wallowing in the mire. They're strong words, Peter, strong words. True words, but it's still strong. Oh my, excuse me. All right, Psalm 119, and we're going to start at verse 113. And go through, here we are, verses 128. So here we go. I hate those who are double-minded, but I love your law. You are my hiding place and my shield. I wait for your word. Leave me, you evildoers, so that I may comply with the commandments of God. Sustain me according to your word, that I may live, and do not let me be ashamed of my hope. Sustain me so that I may be safe, that I may have regard for your statutes continually. You have rejected all those who stray from your statutes, for their deceitfulness is useless. You have removed all the wicked of the earth like impurities. Therefore I love your testimonies. My flesh trembles from the fear of you, and I am afraid of your judgments. I have done justice and righteousness. Do not leave me to my oppressors. Be a guarantor for your servant for good. Do not let the arrogant oppress me. My eyes fail with longing for your salvation and for your righteous word. Deal with your servant according to your graciousness, and teach me your statutes. I am your servant. Give me understanding, so that I may know your testimonies. It is time for the Lord to act, for they have broken your law. Therefore I love your commandments above gold, yes, above pure gold. Therefore I carefully follow all your precepts concerning everything. I hate every false way. And Proverbs 28, verses 19 and 20. One who works his land will have plenty of food, but one who follows empty pursuits will have plenty of poverty. A faithful person will abound with blessings, but one who hurries to be rich will not go unpunished. And that, my friends, is the end of our reading for November 28, 2025. Thanks for joining me. Hope you're having a great day. And I hope to catch you on the next one. But until then, I'll say goodbye. Take care.